Hi, it's Nick on the 5th of July. Hope all's good with you. Continuing this week's theme about unwrapping our giftedness. I think one of the things that can really trip us up is I think it's a fairly common belief that in a way we have to suffer for our giftedness. You know, that we have to be that kind of tortured artist, that if we embrace our creativity, if we embrace our gifts, they could drive us mad. You know, we could lose the plot emotionally or spiritually or whatever. And obviously there's a reality to that, you know, because we can all point to incredibly gifted people that died young, that did themselves harm in one way or another. So there is a lot of evidence, if you like, to support that. But if we turn it on its head and say, well, is it necessary to suffer to be a great artist? No. So I think there's a few things going on. One is, you know, it's just a prevalent belief, this idea of suffering, that somehow suffering is the route to creativity, to creative expression, that the more we suffer, somehow the more that we're going to be able to touch people or, you know, open up to our creative gifts. And again, I think there's something in that I certainly believe we sometimes need to be broken open. But do we need to suffer to be creative? No, I don't believe we do at all. I'm so grateful for the people in my life that are creative and inspired and inspiring, who are incredibly functional, who have very good lives. Either because they have learned how to handle their gifts, or they've recovered. You know, they have been in, you know, self-destructive mode perhaps earlier in their life, and they've learned to become more functional. So I am very grateful for the fact that, you know, I see a lot of people who are incredibly creative, who are having big impacts in the world, and who have very happy lives. So I do believe that being gifted and having a happy and abundant and creative life can go together. And we may need to unhook ourselves from some of those beliefs that we've grown up with. You know, just on a bigger scale, for example, you know I've grown up with the belief that, you know, the route to happiness is through suffering. You know, and there's been a part of me that has suffered a lot. And when I look back, I kind of go, but did I really need to do that? Or was I just acting out this belief that somehow suffering would lead me closer to my happiness and lead me closer to something good? And if I'm honest, I think looking back, I realised, you know, a lot of my suffering was kind of self-induced. It wasn't really necessary, whatever the necessary kind of really means. It was just me living out of a belief that if I suffered, then somehow I'd be rewarded for my suffering. So I think there is this idea that underlies all, you know, many of our lives, not just if we want to live a creative life, but all of our lives, that somehow our suffering makes us more noble. Our suffering makes us a better human being. Look at me, how wonderful I am, and all the trials and tribulations that I've been through. Aren't I amazing? And, you know, the other side of that is that most of us have been through trials and tribulations, and they often are birthing places for new aspects of ourselves. But I think what we can unhook ourselves from is the belief in unnecessary suffering, that somehow the more we suffer, the more creative we're going to be. And if we are creative, that we have to suffer. I think we can really unhook ourselves from that and increasingly become, you know, I like the word functional, but, you know, functionally creative, happy, inspired, you know, good lives, good functional working lives. That's my belief, that we don't have to suffer for our art. We do all suffer, you know, being alive is suffering, but don't add to our suffering for the hope that there's going to be some extra reward at the end of it, because I think there isn't generally. No one's rewarding us for our suffering. So I hope that's been helpful. Wishing you a great day. God bless. Go well. Bye-bye.